In this video, we're going to walk through the process of getting started with a campaign. We're going to create a group, a geofence, and an event so that when we engage with our geofence, we'll get a notification that pops on our device. We can create these items in any order to make things a little bit easier for us. We'll start with the group, then geofence, and then the event. To get started, we're going to go over to the Deployment tab. As you can see, we can navigate amongst the various sections using the left-hand navigation menu. As it so happens, we're in the right spot to create our group. A note about the group: it's an association of our proximity technologies and our events. It helps determine which proximity products will be used to trigger our actions based on a schedule that we set. As we go into the groups view, we have a widget showing all the groups that we have on our account so far. To get started with the new group, we just need to click the Add button. This will allow us to configure our group. We first start with a name and a description. It doesn't have to be anything really too descriptive, just a short description about what we want to call it. The next two questions, locked and location, are really kind of applicable to NFC tags and QR codes or touch technologies only. Locked means that our action at this group level will supersede any action at the tag level. Similarly, location is applicable to NFC and QR as well. You could set how often you ask your customers to share their locations whenever they tap your NFC tags or scan their QR codes. If you have NFC or QR, we can go into the Action tab here, which will help us set the default action for the group for NFC and QR. If we don't have them as a part of our campaign, as in our example, we can move forward. Now we're going to add our geofence. There's a couple of different ways that we can go about this. First, if you look in the left-hand navigation menu, we can expand the wireless triggers option and click geofences here. This will take us to our geofence widget. The other way is through this group view. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see the list of geofences that we have already associated to our group. As we don't have anything right now, it's obviously blank, but if we want to add our geofence, we could just click the Add button right here. To get started, we'll want to start with the name of our geofence. So for this example, we'll use a Space Needle. Next, we need to specify our geofence's location. If we know the latitude and longitude, we could simply add that in and it will update here on the map. Otherwise, we could type in Space Needle here and make our selection. As you can see, the map updates to locate the Space Needle. Now we need to set the radius of our geofence, and this is in meters. As we add the radius, note the change to the map. We get a representation of what the geofence's coverage area will look like. So if we set it to 50 meters, it's a rather small geofence just right around the general location of the Space Needle. However, we could expand that out to 500 meters, and you see a much larger coverage area. Now we'll want to set a dwell value. When we're building out our events, the dwell time here will determine how long a user will need to stay inside of our geofence before they get a notification for having stayed within the geofence for a fixed amount of time. So we'll set it for 120 seconds, which this means is that following an enter event, in order for the user to trigger a dwell event, they'll need to remain inside that circle for at least 2 minutes. BLE scan toggle here is a function for Android devices. This will prompt your Android using customers' devices to scan for a Bluetooth beacon's UUID to trigger any beacon events while they're inside of this geofence. We'll cover this a little bit more in the beacon section, but if you plan on mixing beacons with your geofences to engage customers, and you know you're going to be deploying onto Android as well as iOS, you need to enable this. The time zone value here will automatically update based off of the location that you've determined here for your geofence. And then finally, you need to associate your geofence to your group. We'll associate it to the test group that we had created, and now all we have to do is just click Update. And as you can see, our geofence is now has been stored and associated with our group. Next, we're going to create an event, and we can get into an event in one of two ways. First is that we can further through this geofence menu, or rather through this group menu, we can add a geofence directly here through the Add button. The other way that we can go about this is through the Campaigns tab up along the top. Once we click Campaigns, you can see that the left-hand navigation options change. First is to show the calendar, which shows us a graphical representation of the events that we've created. Regardless of group, it's everything that we've created under our account. The other option here is for events. And then this will display all of the events that we've created so far. So now that we're in the event view, let's go ahead and click the Add button to get started with our event. Within the event edition view, you see 4 basic tabs up here. First is Basic Info, which is where we can specify the name of our event. We can create a description for our event as well. Next option that we have to set is the offer interval. The offer interval determines the amount of time it will take for the event to fire a notification a second time. We'll select 60 minutes. What this means is that someone can get the notification the first time that they've entered into our geofence, but if they exited and then re-entered, they would only get the notification again if it happened more than 60 minutes after the first notification. So we set this at a rather high value so that we don't inadvertently trigger multiple notifications to our user. Next, we could set the category, which will give us a little bit of insight as to the customer's interest. So we could just start with a travel selection, and it will populate based off of what Google AdWords has under travel. So for this one, as our geofence is based around the Space Needle, let's do tourist attractions and destinations. Now we can associate our group again, and what this means is that any geofence within this test group 2 will use this same event to trigger any kind of enter or exit or dwell events. Finally, we can set our trigger, and what this refers to is what has to happen, what's that interaction point with the geofence, beacon, or Wi-Fi network that will make this event pop. For this one, we're going to select the geofence enter. So basically, whenever someone enters into our geofence, we will send out this notification. Note that this field can also be used to select other types of trigger events. So if we want to use a geofence and say a Wi-Fi enter, we could do that as well. So what this means is that if a user enters into our geofence, or if their Android device happens to hear our Wi-Fi network, we could trigger this event for them as well. As we move in from page to page, we want to make sure that we click this update button to save our progress. We get a notification here that the event has been updated. Now we can safely move on to the next tab, which is scheduling. In the Scheduling tab, we're going to establish when we want this event to fire. We could set our start date of our campaign, the end date, and the times in which we want our event to be active. So for our test, let's select today, November 6th, and let's make our start time, say 10 o'clock at the local device time level. We don't want to set firing off too early, we don't want it firing off too late, so for our end time, let's select 8 p.m. These times are representative of the local time on the device. So if your geofence was drawn, say, around somewhere in New York, for our friends in the Pacific time zone, if they happen to trigger that event, they would only get it if they were in between 8 to 10. Now we can set the end date by toggling this end date occurrence switch. And let's say we only want our campaign to go for 2 weeks. So we'll select 11/20. The repeat settings will allow us to set the days on which, days of the week, the days of the month, and days of the year that we want our event to fire. If we select every day, that means it's going to fire every single day, Monday through Friday, plus Saturday and Sunday. If we only wanted to fire on weekdays, we could select the week, and then further drill down and select Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. With our schedule, we want to be careful here so that we're not firing an event when it's not useful for our customer. After all, having a notification for a store display when display for a customer when the store is closed isn't really useful for them. So once you're done here, we want to click the update button to save our progress further. Now that we got schedule updated notification, we can move into our actions. And in this action tab, we can set what will happen whenever someone enters into the geofence, what action will pop on their device. So you can see we could set any number of actions, from a URL redirect, a deep link into a website, an email message to be toggled, a Twitter message, or a YouTube video to pop. To make this a little bit simple, let's send them over to Smartwhere's website. So we clicked URL redirect, and then we can type in the URL that we want to send them to. And whenever someone enters into this into our geofence, they will get a redirect if they click on the notification to go over to smartwhere.com. Lastly, what we could do here on the notifications, text, and title is that we can configure what message will pop on their device. So we can say, "Welcome to the Space Needle." And the text will be, now, when someone enters into the Space Needle with the app, they will get a notification that says, "Welcome to the Space Needle. We hope you enjoy your stay." When they click on that notification, they will get sent over to smartwhere.com. And this is all we need for our event to work with our geofence. Thanks for watching.